be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. On leaving the synagogue, Jesus entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Simon's mother-in-law lay sick with a fever. They immediately told him about her. He approached, grasped her hand, and helped her up. Then the fever left her, and she waited on them. When it was evening, after sunset, they brought to him all who were ill or possessed by demons. The whole town was gathered at the door. He cured many who were sick with various diseases, and he drove out many demons, not permitting them to speak because they knew him. Rising very early before dawn, he left and went off to a deserted place where he prayed. Simon and those who were with him pursued him, and on finding him said, "Everyone is looking for you." He told them, "Let us go on to the nearby villages, that I may preach there also. For this purpose have I come." So he went into their synagogues, preaching and driving out demons throughout the whole of Galilee. The Gospel of the Lord. Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. These words are spoken by Job in the first chapter of the book of Job. Job is a person of great wealth. He has many flocks, lots of camels, has lots of children, got a wife, has a place to live. He has a wonderful life. It's going well for Job. The point of the story is asking the question, what if Job lost everything he has? Would he still remain faithful to God? The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. That's a good statement of faith. But what if he lost it all? The point of the book of Job is to discern what is our relationship with God and what does our commitment to him depend. Does it only depend upon our doing well? Or does it also include times that are tough? As the story progresses, Job indeed loses everything. His children are killed, his camels and his flocks are stolen, and he loses everything. And he finds himself sitting on a heap of ashes. But he's maintaining his trust in God, although he's suffering. Hard for him. So then the challenge is the story is, well, what if we afflict him even more? Let's cover him with boils, put him in constant pain. Now let's see what Job does. So that happens. He's covered from the bottoms of his feet to the top of his head in boils. In his state of suffering, 3 friends come and sit with him in the ash heap and talk with him. Help him to discern what's happening. Why is this happening to him? What has he done? What's his relationship to God? Why would God let this happen? And throughout the book, this conversation goes on among his friends and with Job. And finally, the Lord intervenes and says that there is no reason this happened to Job. It wasn't a punishment. It wasn't because he sinned. And so the Lord heals him and brings him back to his former life. The end of the story, at the end of the book of Job, Job's got all of his flocks and camels, and he's got a new family, and things are going well, and he dies at an old age. In the Gospel today, we are continuing reading through chapter 1 of the Gospel of Mark. Last week, you may remember, Jesus comes to Capernaum, enters the synagogue, and teaches. And while he's in the synagogue, he is approached by a man with an unclean spirit. The man with the unclean spirit asks a very important question of Jesus. It's so important that it is spoken well in the Greek. He men kai soi. He men kai soi. What? Us and you. That's how it's literally translated. What's us and you? That's all it's about. Why are you here? What have you have to do with us? Jesus of Nazareth. And so Jesus casts out the unclean spirit, and he and his disciples walk over to Simon's house. It's not far away. At the site today of Capernaum, it's maybe a block or two from the synagogue down the street. The ruins are still there. And he enters Simon and Andrew's house, along with James and John, and they tell him that if you want lunch, we have a problem, because Simon's mother-in-law is sick with a fever. According to the culture, her job would be to fix them a meal. She can't. She's in bed. So Jesus goes in where she is and grasps her by the hand and helps her up. And the fever leaves her, and she waits on them, feeds them, gives them lunch. The point of this scene with Simon's mother-in-law is that it wasn't simply to heal her. The point of what Jesus is doing with her is making her whole and bringing her back into her life so that she can do her usual duties. It's actually what happens to Job. The Lord heals him, but doesn't just heal him, he makes him whole, brings him back to his former life. And so when Jesus is there in Simon and Andrew's house, they bring him all of the sick people in town. And he heals them and casts out the demons. But he's not just doing that. One of Jesus' concerns in the gospel is that he doesn't want these stories to get out about him, because then he'll become a sideshow, and people will simply come and watch him do magic, watch him heal people. They won't listen to him. The reason he came was to preach. Towards the end of the gospel today, Simon and his people with him are coming out where Jesus is praying and said, "Everyone's looking for you." The implication is, well, come on back. We have a lot more people for you to heal. But Jesus says, "No, let us go to the nearby villages, that I may preach there also." He says nothing about healing. The healing is almost just a side thing. It's not what he's doing. He's not there just to heal people. He's there to preach the gospel, make people whole, just as he did with Simon's mother-in-law. To make them normal, not because they're ill physically, but because they're spiritually ill. They're spiritually distant from God. And so he wants to bring them back, have them experience conversion, and draw close to God, and to remain faithful. In our lives, we can have many things that we struggle with. Well, there's happy things that happen. We have joyous events. Happy things occur to us. But there's also hard things that happen, things that are tough. When we're sick, or when we've lost something, when we've been injured, when we are unemployed, when we don't have any money, when we don't have any food. Those can be dark times. In the first reading, it's in chapter 7 of Job. Job says, "Remember that my life is like the wind. I shall not see happiness again." And we can sometimes feel like that. This is never going to be better ever again. I'm sort of stuck. But we're called to be faithful like Job, and to know that Jesus comes not just to heal us, but to make us whole, to bring us back into God's presence, and to support us, help us be good disciples. We are going through a very tough time, obviously, in the last year in our society with the pandemic. We've had some very dark days. We've been losing lots and lots of people. Dying in droves. But then, the vaccinations come. So now people are getting vaccinated. So although we have those dark times, there's also hope. There's hope that the Lord will provide for us through medical science and make us well. I think of the 439,000 people who have died in this country from the coronavirus. If they could have waited and got their shot, they might be alive. But in spite of that darkness, we're called to be people of hope, be people who rely upon the goodness of God. And as Jesus comes into these people's lives in the gospel, so Jesus comes into our life. We're called to remain faithful even when times are tough. It's always a temptation to be mad at God. This happened to me. Why did you let this happen to me? I'm going to get back at you, God. How about if I don't go to church anymore? How about if I don't say my prayers? How about if I just walk away? That'll teach you. That's a whole perspective that doesn't work, because we are given the suffering in our lives to bring us closer to God, not back away from Him. Why do people suffer? It's an age-old issue that people have struggled with, both Christians and philosophers. Why do people suffer? We ultimately don't know. It's a mystery. But we do know that God loves us, and God's there for us no matter what. No matter what happens to us, as St. Paul says, it's all going to be okay. It will all work out in the end. And so we're called to be like Job, to be faithful, and to stand by God, no matter what. And know that God reaches out to us each day and cares for us. And that someday we too will be like Job. We will pass on to the Lord. Pass on to the Lord into glory. And in that whole journey, God has been with us both in the good times and the tough times. Happy events and the sad events. God was always there with us. And Jesus walks with us on this journey each day.